This episode of Robservations is brought to you by the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. Listen, you know you've always wanted to make a movie. Now you have a month left before you can submit to the first film festival that allows extraterrestrials to submit their films. If extraterrestrials can do it, so can you. What's stopping you? What's your excuse? You have a month. You can make a film. You know you can make a film. Just do it. Just do it.
It was a time when outer space was filled with incredible machines, whose eyes and ears recorded our most sensitive secrets.
2 atom bombs.
Fake! I can smell it. There are no atom bombs. There never was.
Will he blow up New York?
According to this report, yes, sir.
Secrets that could and did change the fate of nations. And one man was witness to what we all would soon come to know.
How is the love life of a superstar?
Oh, it has its ups and downs.
A man who spoke with terrorists.
Makes killing a pleasure.
Presidents.
Well, don't say yes and don't say no. Don't say maybe. Say you'll call back, but don't. That's how you stay president.
And kings.
Tomorrow is the most important day of my life.
A man who must discover the truth before it's too late.
But if the people know the truth...
Attack now, Mr. President. Hit him first.
Good guys never shoot first.
Why not?
I will not go down in history as the president who started World War III.
It all could have happened in the recent past.
I am sick and tired of the gays and lesbians, the bar-hopping harlots, yapping about their unconstitutional, ungodly rights. It's time for the true Christians to come out of the closet.
For the present. Or even in the near future. But it didn't. It happened in that elusive time between now and later. That time when dark is light, when down is up, when foul is fair, when...
You sure you're ready for this?
I'll do my best.
Your best? Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude. Well, you know, it's kind of a sad day. All of those things are true, but you know, it's one of those days where we lost a legend, a man. You know, it's funny to me. I've always thought it was people that presumably we don't know. A world mourned when Princess Di passed away, died in a car accident with Dodi Fayed. But I've always maintained that it isn't true that we don't necessarily know celebrities. Well, of course, we don't perhaps know them personally, but we do have relationships with people, sometimes long-term intimate relationships with maybe not the imaginations. I said that already. And certainly Sean Connery was someone like that. For me, Sean Connery was pretty much the embodiment of everything that I thought a man should be. And, you know, I think the first time I probably saw Sean Connery was not as James Bond, but in the 1959 Disney film Darby O'Gill and the Little People. I didn't really register because I was very young when I saw that movie for the first time, but I didn't when I first started watching him as James Bond on the ABC Sunday night movie. You know, it didn't register with me, but I've been watching Sean Connery literally my entire life. He's a fixture in my head. He lives there. I mean, he's lived there. I loved the early James Bond movies when I was a kid. I've watched them all 100 times. As I grew older, I loved him in Zardoz. John Borman's Zardoz. A lot of people might think his outfit was strange, and silly, but I always loved the film. I loved what it was trying to say. I loved what it meant. And of course, as I grew older, I saw things like one of my favorite movies of all time, The Man Who Would Be King, which, if you have not seen it, Sean Connery and Michael Caine, it's one of the great classic films of all time. And if you haven't seen it, shame on you. And as he moved into his, Ramirez and Highlander, and yes, Highlander 2, which everybody makes mistakes now and again, but Marco Ramius and The Hunt for Red October, and moving on throughout the rest of his life, he was acting from basically the 50s into the aughts. He did the voice of Bond for the From Russia with Love video game. I mean, he was a man that took root in my imagination, took root in who I was, really. And I wanted, just like William Shatner, who as Captain Kirk meant so much to me, Sean Connery was somebody that, as I grew up, I was a child watching him. As an adult, as a young adult, and then into adulthood, I watched him. I always loved seeing a Sean Connery performance, and he never ceased to thrill me. And he didn't just have a license to kill; he did have a license to thrill, and he always did. And you know, my friend Jeff Bond actually wrote something today, and I'd like to share it with you. Jeff Bond, by the way, if you don't know Jeff Bond, his latest work is this book with Gene Kazicki on the art of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which is an amazing book. Now, hold on, let me just put the glasses on here, and I'm going to read what Jeff Bond said. And Jeff Bond is it's not just because his last name is Bond, you know. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I just thought that Jeff Bond wrote something really that I completely agreed with. And I'd like to read it to you. Here's what he wrote 4 hours ago. I don't even know what to say about Sean Connery. That's more than the loss of an actor. It's the loss of an iconic, semi-mythic character and a kind of father figure for good or ill. I rewatched all the Connery Bond movies in the past year, and I was blown away by just what a physically beautiful human being he was as a young man, and his ability to utter lines that would just make you wince if delivered by anyone else, and make them sound witty. His secret, I think, was a combination of a rough-and-tumble background as an athlete and his stated love of poetry and art. He was totally convincing in any moment of action, but he also had a sneaky sophistication, both as Bond and as other characters. I'll always remember in an Irvin Kershner movie called A Fine Madness. He plays an openly abusive poet, and late in the film it seems like he's been lobotomized like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But unlike Nicholson, after a terrifying moment of apparent confusion, Connery springs back to life and goes back to assaulting and berating people over the epic poem he's been writing. He was unlikable. He was unkillable. Actually, it's not unlikable. He was unkillable. But of course, Connery himself was mortal, as incongruous as that seems. Like every classic actor, from Bogart to James Dean, though, he'll have his own kind of immortality. Rest in peace. Addendum, if you haven't heard it, track down the recording of Benjamin Britten's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra, narrated by Connery. It is an absolute delight, a word I rarely use sincerely, but do in this case. So my friend Jeff Bond, who's a very eloquent writer, I thought that was a very apropos remembrance of Mr. Connery. I'm going to talk more about him a little bit later, but something happened that I had to share with all of you. As you all know, I am prone to spouting my witty bon mots about the entertainment business. Some of the things I like to say is, it ain't show friends, it's show business, which, to be fair, I stole from Jerry Maguire. Bob Sugar said that, is the character of Bob Sugar, said that, and I've always loved it. I think it's true. But I also have said, and this is sort of, I don't know where I got this from, but I didn't make it up myself. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And when I find out that young people who watch this channel take my words to heart, well, it makes it seem all worthwhile. Now, you all know that the first Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival was inspired by Dieter Bastian and Patrick Keller's movie, The Secret Exchange. They submitted The Secret Exchange 2 as an entry into the film festival. Well, I think a star in the making, Patrick's daughter, Mia, who's 10 years old, well, they want to make The Secret Exchange 3. But problematically, the one obstacle standing in their way is young Mia Keller, who seems to have learned the lessons I've been trying to teach maybe a bit too well. Here's a video that her father sent me that Mia made of her lists of demands that she expects to receive when she stars in The Secret Exchange 3, whatever it's going to be called. Now, this is in German. It's not subtitled. But I do think you will catch the gist. And I just want to say to Mia Keller, all the way over there in Saarbrücken, Deutschland, I want to say, Mia, you, my dear, you have a great future ahead of you, and you will do us all proud. It's women like yourself with such a keen mind and understanding of negotiating skills. I'm not your dad. I've never met you. But I want to say this. You, Mia, you have made me proud.
Meine Wunschliste für Part 3. Ein Pony, ein iPhone 12 Pro, 10 McDonalds-Besuche gratis, 5 Zoo-Besuche gratis, ein iPad Apple Pro, ein Hund, eine PlayStation 5, für die PlayStation ein Spiel Minecraft, Blu-ray, Der Spion von nebenan.
So viel später, dass es dem alten Erzähler zu blöd wurde und man einen neuen anstellen musste.
Eine Alexa, ein Fernseher, ein Laptop, 25 Kinobesuche gratis, eine Nintendo Switch, ein iMac, ein paar Rollschuhe. Und meine Mama wünscht sich einen romantischen Mann. Das wird ganz schön teuer.
Now, not only is that totes adorbs, but I see a future leader in our midst. Fantastic. No, but you know, when I think back to Sean Connery, I just figured I would go through his IMDb and talk about some films that meant a lot to me growing up. First and foremost, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, which is when I first saw him. Now, his pre-Bond work, I really haven't seen. I did see The Longest Day. 1962 is The Longest Day. I mean, if you're a war film fan, how could you not? What a film that was. Then, of course, after that, he did Dr. No and From Russia with Love, obviously. Then he worked with Alfred Hitchcock it came out in 64 in Marnie. You know, pretty early on in his career. Amazing. Pre-Goldfinger. And then he did The Hill and Thunderball and then A Fine Madness, the movie Jeff Bond was talking about. You Only Live Twice. Let's see. After that, The Anderson Tapes, Diamonds Are Forever, of course, Zardoz, Murder on the Orient Express, The Wind and the Lion and the Man Who Would Be King, Robin and Marion. I mean, amazing. Robin and Marion wasn't amazing, but A Bridge Too Far. He worked for Michael Crichton. That's right. Michael Crichton directed him in The Great Train Robbery. Then he was in, who can forget, but I have it on Blu-ray, Meteor. Because you've always wanted to see movies with Sean Connery and Natalie Wood and just about every other star in Hollywood, where a meteor hits the Earth. Then, of course, he was in Meteor in 1979, and in 81, Peter Hyams directed him in Outland. And if you really want to see how effects technology marched on, watch Meteor first, which admittedly has some really cool model work in it, but it looks like they were models that I built. So, still is fun. And then, of course, he was in Time Bandits and Wrong is Right, a forgotten film that I played the trailer for. Big fan of that movie, although I haven't seen it in a long time because it's very difficult to find on home video now. Never Say Never Again. Highlander, The Name of the Rose. Highlander, The Name of the Rose, The Untouchables, The Presidio, even though that's not great, but Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Hunt for Red October, The Russia House, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, uncredited, Rising Sun, which I actually love, First Night, The Rock, the ill-fated Avengers movie, not the Avengers movie that you're thinking of, but Finding Forrester, and then his last film, really, in 2003, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. A great career, and every one of those performances I think is worth watching. And it's funny because he's somebody I always thought would be around. As a kid, I played with Dinky Toys, his Corgi DB5 from Goldfinger, which I'm getting the parts for. I'm going to build. I don't have them all yet, but I'm building a what is it? A 1/8 scale? I think it's a 1/8 scale DB5 that I've been getting the parts for over the last 2 years. I'm going to put that together, and it's it's one of those things because stars, your favorite actors, they live in your imaginations, and whatever characters they played or parts they played, when you go back and you watch movies over and over and over again, it's like what Penny Lane said in the movie Almost Famous, what Kate Hudson's character said, if you want to go visit your friends, you go to the record store. Well, we all have our favorite movies, our comfort films that we watch over and over and over again. And I think the reason that we watch them is because those people that inhabit those movies, those characters, maybe not the actors themselves, but the actors obviously are inextricably linked with those characters, so it's the actor too. But if you love Marco Ramius as I do, I know everything he's ever going to say, but I never get tired of watching Sean Connery as Marco Ramius. I never get tired of watching his character in The Untouchables. I never get tired of watching Bond. Even in The Rock, Michael Bay's film, who can forget him? You can't. And we all have actors like that. I was sad for a week when Leonard Nimoy died, and I'd been to his house. But with Sean Connery, he lived a good life. He was 90 years old. He probably did anything he wanted to do and probably lived the best life. And I can't be sad about it. I've been sad I haven't seen a great Connery performance. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not a great film, but I loved Connery in it. And I can watch Hunt for Red October or any of the Bond films or Zardoz or whatever. A Bridge Too Far. It's sad to know that he doesn't walk the earth anymore. But I think he leaves behind a legacy of incredible work for the better part of 50 years. And who can say that? And I think he will bring smile and joy and entertainment to people, well, for as long as we can still watch movies, which is hopefully a very, very long time. So I drink to Sean. I hoist my glass. You probably would have liked this. 19 Crimes, Snoop Dogg. So here's to Sean. A drink to him. The world was never enough for Sean, and now I'm sure all of his dreams are even more exciting or more thrilling than any of the films that he made for us. So rest in peace, sir, and thanks for all that you gave us during the course of your career. Anyway, there's something Bond related I wanted to talk about that was posted yesterday. Now, I've been banging on this show about how, obviously, we've been talking about how big blockbuster movies are paid for on credit. Studios don't have huge piles of cash lying around that they make their movies for or with, and they borrow money from banks to make films. And I was under the impression, and I was trying to find out why I was under the impression of this, that somebody, or maybe I thought it was the Broccoli family, had paid off the production costs for No Time to Die. So at least No Time to Die could sit on a shelf indefinitely and nobody was losing money. Well, based on a story in Variety yesterday, my assumption and what I've been spouting on this show for the last, a couple of months, could very well be untrue. And you know me, I like to correct myself when I've been wrong. Except when it comes to Star Trek Discovery. I'm not wrong. So anyway, I'd like to read this article that was in Variety yesterday that I found quite interesting. Breaking down MGM's costly No Time to Die dilemma. This article was posted yesterday at 4:30 in the afternoon by Brent Lang and Matt Donnelly. In early October, with cases of COVID-19 rising in Europe, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer decided to pull the plug on its plans to release No Time to Die at Thanksgiving. The studio had made a similar decision last March as coronavirus first gripped the world, pushing the release of the 25th James Bond adventure back by 8 months, only to discover that it hadn't run far enough ahead of a worsening public health catastrophe. The move was financially painful, given that the studio had already spent $66 million in marketing costs. Bringing No Time to Die to the screen was already a pricey proposition. The film, which marks Daniel Craig's final turn as 007, carried a $301 million net budget. Holy mother of God. Plus, Craig and producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, who control the rights to the series, have generous back-end and profit participation deals, limiting the amount of money MGM is able to make on the movie. MGM was in a bind, and it was a dilemma that could soon be shared by other smaller and mid-sized studios such as Lionsgate and STX Eros as they try and wait out the pandemic. Delaying No Time to Die until April 2021, as MGM ultimately opted to do, meant that the studio had to reportedly carry an additional $1 million in interest charges per month. And few people in the industry think that No Time to Die is done moving. Public health officials indicate that a vaccine is unlikely to be widely available by the spring, and since the audience for the film skews older, Bond fans are more vulnerable to coronavirus. Prior to moving No Time to Die, MGM chairman Kevin Ulrich went on a fishing expedition, letting deep-pocketed streaming services know he might be open to licensing the movie to them exclusively for a year or even selling it outright. Netflix and Apple engaged in some exploratory talks but never made a formal offer or even drafted the kind of financial analysis that usually accompanies such a sale. That was partially because MGM and the parties remained very far apart. MGM was hoping for an offer of between $600 million to $850 million, which might have been an impressive enough number to convince Broccoli and Wilson to forego a theatrical release. Instead, the streamers indicated that they wouldn't top $400 million, which was more than MGM had already spent making the movie when Craig and the producers' back ends were taken into account. Universal, which oversees foreign distribution, also needed to be compensated. A spokesman for MGM said that the studio would not comment on rumors, but all slated films were moved in an effort to preserve the theatrical experience. I mean, this is insane, and this is why we are in such a crazy time. And you can understand, I mean, with $301 million, my God, that is a lot of money. And to know that they're spending $1 million in interest payments, that means that's $12 million in interest payments just because of the delays MGM will have suffered into April. Now, we already have, as we already know that Britain is locking down again for at least a month beginning this Thursday. And France, Germany, Europe, COVID cases are skyrocketing. Again, not a democratic hoax. And it's bad. And I doubt with a movie that has that much money against it, they have to open it theatrically. And I don't even think opening it theatrically with half the theater, half the capacity of the movie has to be in the theaters for a long time. Tenet showed us we can't expect even big blockbuster films to necessarily survive in the theatrical environment. It's a tough one, man. It is tough. Numerous competitors pointed out that MGM's Bond predicament would have been less complex had the company chosen a major studio partner in 2017 as a distributor. MGM entered a joint venture with Annapurna Pictures, which was eventually branded United Artists Releasing almost 4 years ago, after turning down bids from majors including Warner Brothers and Paramount Pictures. While other insiders insist United Artists Releasing has cash on hand to release both No Time to Die and a sequel to MGM's Alicia Vikander-led Tomb Raider, many agreed a media giant would be better suited to weather this particular storm. An MGM spokesman disputed an auction for Bond rights and reaffirmed the studio's commitment to United Artists Releasing, saying, "We have tremendous confidence in the United Artists team, which is led by veterans of this industry who have worked on several Bond films over the course of their careers." I mean, it's incredible. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just weep for movie theaters. It's a rough one, man. It is a tough call. And I keep thinking that, my God, with Sean Connery having left us at 90. By the way, William Shatner will be 90 on March 22nd. So he seems to be in great health. He's still out there swinging. And both Shatner and Connery, I think, represent a brand of maledom that we might never see the likes of again. And that makes me sad because I wanted to be both of them badly. Actually, still do at many points in my life, even now. So, yeah, it's a bummer. It is a bummer. But let's jump into your letters, and let's get all imagination connoisseur like now. This letter comes from Roger Robertson. Hello, Rob, and the audience of the Post-Geek Singularity. I saw the story about Victoria Alonso, one of Kevin Feige's right-hand people, wanting to spearhead an A-Force, all-female-led team project. That would be a all-female Avengers movie. I would be totally in favor of this. On the John Campea show, you mentioned that they would only need a plausible reason for all the characters to be together and a great story. You liked my idea about the setting of Black Panther 2, so I will also share my idea for an A-Force project. Regardless how Black Panther 2 transpires, we will go forward with the idea that T'Challa's vision for his kingdom will continue. It has been some time since Wakanda pledged to open the first Wakandan Outreach Center in Oakland, California, but I'm sure there are many things in the MCU world which were put on hold. Okoye would be escorting Shuri for the opening of this center in Oakland, California. For this occasion, there would be dignitaries of all the groups of the planet. The Avengers could send Maria Hill. We don't know what Wakanda's situation will be. New Asgard would send their new Queen Valkyrie, and Hope Pym would just have to come from across the bay. It would stretch things to bring in any of the Guardians, but I believe the Earthbound characters would be enough. The antagonist of the story would be the mysterious person who Sonny Birch was working for. We know this person is after any advanced technology, and the change to get a hold of a cache of vibranium, which would be at the Outreach Center, very tempting. Is this person Justin Hammer, Norman Osborn, Victor Von Doom? Whomever can set back in the shadows, but they can bring many forces to bear, give the group a real threat. As for Captain Marvel, I think she would be so overpowered, it might be better to leave her off-world to bring her in for the third act. Anyway, Rob, that's my premise. As always, it's a pleasure to write to you, and I will continue to be a proud member of the Post-Geek Singularity. Speaking of members, I think somebody became a member earlier on in this broadcast that I noticed. It popped up. I want to thank you for that. I can't see anymore who that might have been, but thanks for becoming a member of the channel. I appreciate it. And let's see, who is next? and there is so many here. Actually, there's too many. There's too many I haven't read. Here's a letter from Omar94. Omar says, just to add to my letter on escapist filmmaking. Oh, perhaps I didn't read your letter on escapist filmmaking. Do I have to find it? I'll come back to that. Arnold Schwarzenegger writes in. It's true. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Dear Rob, I hope you and your family are well. It's been a while since I've written a letter to you. I wasn't sure which subject I should have picked, so I selected show suggestions. In regards to my topic, I remember watching some of your reaction to the Dune trailer on the John Campea show. Both of you had the same reaction. It was a great trailer for the book readers themselves, but not for the newcomers. The trailer doesn't exactly give away a story, similar to Blade Runner 2049. This marketing error eventually led to the underperformance of Blade Runner 2049, and I'm worried that this might eventually lead to the same performance for Dune. But conversely, Dune is already proving way more popular than Blade Runner 2049 ever was. The fact that it gained more views than the recent Batman and Wonder Woman 1984 trailer actually shows how widespread this trailer has become, alongside its largely positive reviews. Anyhow, the reason I contacted you is because I decided to alleviate this ailment. A short time ago, I created a Medium article titled 2021's Dune, The Story and Everything You Need to Know, which I designed for both book readers and newcomers alike to allow them to become familiar with the general story and source material of the movie. It's a 16-minute article, which is my longest yet, and I hope this will encourage more people to watch the movie, enough to justify a sequel and the adaptation of the rest of the book series. Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House Dune, and then all of the expanded books too, preferably. The Legends of Dune prequel trilogy, which includes the Butlerian Jihad, the Machine Crusade, and the Battle of Corran, does feel quite cinematic and action-packed too. Yeah, but I don't know if it's canonical. I can't go with the non-Herbert stuff as being canonical. Non-Frank Herbert stuff, not Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. Since there might not be a lot of topics to talk about in the movie industry thanks to the virus, I thought I would suggest to you to analyze my article and tell me what you think of it, and assess whether or not it can entice newcomers into the franchise. Well, this isn't necessarily for me to say, it's for the Post-Geek Singularity to say, so there you go. There is the link that I have put into the live chat about Dune. In short, if you have time, please analyze and share this topic and tell me your honest opinion on the likelihood of it encouraging more people to watch the actual movie. Well, I think anybody... thank you for reading, Rob. I hope you have a great day, and I wish you all the best. Kind regards, The Terminator. Listen, the more information people can have about the Dune series, the better off. I mean, I don't see... I see the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books, like the Butlerian Jihad. Like, I read that, and it was interesting. But to me, it's and I know a lot of it was taken from Frank Herbert's notes, but I still can't. To me, there's only 6 Dune novels, and as I've said before, I've heard from a reliable source that what Legendary hopes to do is to make 3 Dune movies. This movie would be called Dune. The second movie would be called Dune Prophet, and the third movie, because it's based on the second book in the series, would be called Dune Messiah. And the 3 films would chart the rise, and if you know the story, spectacular fall, including the deaths of billions and billions of people, of Paul Atreides. And I think that's pretty spectacular. I hope they get to do that. I want to see the Dune trilogy. So, Terminator, thank you for your letter. Very much appreciated. Let's jump over and see what people are saying over here in this chat. Let's see. It was Grand Wazoo 42 became a member of the channel, and David Wells became a member of the channel. Thank you both for becoming a member. As people know, memberships are going to help us support what we're going to do, such as publishing books and things like that. Remember the short story contest and the book cover contest. For those of you who don't know, this channel is going to be sponsoring a short story contest. All stories have to be between 5,000 and 10,000 words. And the book is going to be called The Imagination Connoisseurs. And the only thing that your story must somehow relate back to that. What is an imagination connoisseur and how does it relate? You don't have to draw a direct line. And our own resident author who has books already published that you can find on Amazon, B.L. Alley, has graciously offered to host a Zoom party where he will impart his knowledge about writing, which I think is a really good idea. And I think I haven't even talked to him about this. He just wrote me about this. Well, I'm telling you, yes, BL, that is a good idea. And we should do that. So probably sometime, I would say mid-December, in support of, or maybe when we officially kick off the book cover contest after the film festival is over on the 1st of December, I want to have this Zoom party where BL can impart his wisdom and we can answer, or he can answer questions about writing, and we can talk about the art of writing. And I think it's a great idea, which is exactly the kind of thing I want to see more of on this channel. So I think that will be fun. But that's why we are doing the whole membership thing, is because we're going to be printing a hardcover book with a dust jacket and a slipcase, and it's going to be great. So thank you, David and Grand Wazoo 42 for becoming members. Raymond Verata says, Godspeed, Sean Connery. You have always taught us not to whine about our best and go home with the prom queen, to bring a gun, not a knife, and to put someone in the morgue when one of yours is in the hospital. We are shaken, but not stirred. Thank you, Raymond, for that. Rest in peace, Sean. Mark C., the channel's official Toxic fan, but not really, sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Need some little-mentioned Connery films to watch? Try The Wind and the Lion. Great movie. The Man Who Would Be King, Robin and Marion, and one I've come to love, Medicine Man, directed by John McTiernan, or as it's known in Spain, The Last Days of Eden. I actually like Medicine Man. I think Lorraine Bracco is a little miscast, but I like the film. Cardinal Sin is here. I love the Banshee and Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Mark C. says, oh, if I get this, I always mispronounce these words. Mark C. says he's having 3 fingers of Glenn Morangi in honor of Sean Connery. I'm sure Sean would love that you're doing that. Jeff Yerke is here. Jeff Yerke says, hi, Rob. A sad day today. I've been watching Mr. Connery since 1963 and will truly miss him. Last night, however, was a different story. Mrs. Y and I celebrated 27 years of wedded bliss. We hoisted a few to one another, and your name was mentioned more than once. Jeff goes on to say, and today I was amply rewarded when I received a 10-inch mint-condition Randy Bowen Superman ceramic figure. Yes, the Seinfeld one. It's been a joy being a part of the Post-Geek Singularity, and we definitely park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. Live long and prosper, the Yerk Man. Well, Jeff, I'm glad you and your wife. That's a great thing. 27 years of wedded bliss. I would assume that's because you practice one of the basic tenets of philosophy that I agree with, which is, of course, ladies first in all things. Am I right? I don't know. Only Mrs. Yerke could tell us. Stubble McShave goes on and says, Connery oozed charisma. He's always the coolest guy on screen. He was the best Bond and always delivered in his other roles. It's true. I know he was offered Gandalf. I've often wondered if he'd have disappeared in the role or if his movie star status would shine through. That's a really interesting question. If Sean Connery, I don't know. I mean, I would tend to think that would Connery have been a better Gandalf than Ian McKellen? We'll never know, but I can't believe that's true. Ian McKellen, I mean, one of the great portrayals of any character by any actor of all time. So, yeah. Stubble McShave says, okay, Rob, take a look at your crystal ball. You mean the Prince album? It's right over there. I love that album. Oh, wait, that's not what you mean. Okay, Rob, take a look at your crystal ball. In 2 years, the pandemic will hopefully be over. Do you think the movies made 2 to 5 years from now will reference the period we're living through? Or do you think people just want to forget about this and dream other dreams? That's actually a really good question. Obviously, I don't know if you saw the trailer for Songbird, the Michael Bay film that he produced. It's not directed by him, about the pandemic. You know, yeah, I think people are going to there's going to be a lot written about this time, but I have to say, I feel like this time has just been, it's like Groundhog Day. I think that we all just want to get back to work and our regular lives, and I feel we're all going through the same thing. Some people more than others, but at the end of the day, I just think people want to get beyond this. I feel like we're at the starting gate of a race that never starts, and we all want to be in the race. I don't think people are going to come back. I don't think this, like when I was younger, there was a lot of movies made about Vietnam, whether it was Coming Home, whether it was The Deer Hunter, whether it was Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, Rambo, Uncommon Valor, whatever. There's a lot of Vietnam, Born on the 4th of July, and there was a lot of examination and soul-searching that went on because of the Vietnam era and what it did to America. I think, if anything, there's going to be more movies and subject matter that have to do with the 4 years of the Trump administration and the changing face of America, how where America is at now as opposed to where we were. It's going to be interesting to see. I think this pandemic is something people just want to get past. I other than the fact that I think, in a way, this pandemic has made me very creative, and I've actually done a lot of work during it. What I haven't liked is I haven't seen people. I mean, I've had Zoom things. We turned our Thursday night gathering at local pubs into a local gathering on Zoom, and that's been great. But I still would much rather go places. I miss just walking around and seeing other people milling about. I don't know if we're gonna get a lot of this. And there's never been a vaccine for a coronavirus. And while there's a ton of money being thrown in the direction of coronaviruses and trying to come up with a vaccine, and everyone's talking about, well, I haven't read a lot of things that seem very encouraging about a coronavirus vaccine. It's too bad that we haven't been able to buckle down and stay home and wear masks the way we should have. And looking at the rates of infection going up and things like that. Yes, the mortality rates are coming down, but still we have many, many people dying because more people are getting the disease. It's a bummer. I don't know where we're going to go or where we're going to be, but it's kind of a bummer. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't think that people are going to be wanting to revisit this period of time anytime soon. Jason Webster writes in and says, "Hi, Rob. I hope yourself and the carefree and engaging members of the Post-Geek Singularity have a great week ahead. On the subject of the future of the Bond franchise, I can see a scenario where Eon Productions sells the theatrical film rights to Universal Pictures and the back catalog and streaming rights to Apple TV. Universal badly needs other intellectual properties because what they've got, apart from Jurassic World, that they can utilize to become massive hits to see them rise to the top of the filmmaking landscape, become the numero uno amongst the studios for consistently returning massive revenue for their films. Well, they do have the Fast and the Furious franchise. Darkman, King Kong, The Thing, Universal Monsters, Pacific Rim. The last remakes, prequels, or chapters in those franchises yielded either very mediocre returns or were downright flops. In the case of Darkman, they were straight-to-video sequels. Although I must say I would be up for a Darkman film from the creator himself, Sam Raimi, but I've digressed slightly. Robert Zemeckis has been adamant there will be no prequels, remakes, or sequels to the Back to the Future franchise, thank God. So adamant that Satan would need to be caught wearing a thermal underwear and a frozen over hell before we get another film in that franchise, as well that's the way it should be. If they want to become the next Disney at the very top of the tree, they need something that will be long-running and very, very lucrative. Although I believe Universal is going to have another crack at remakes of their Universal monsters over the next few years. Undoubtedly, Apple TV needs a property to be the centerpiece of the service. Acquiring the rights to the back catalog and the rights for television spin-offs of the Bond franchise would do it. These types of deals for both Universal and Apple TV would be beneficial and would mean they wouldn't have to undertake the extremely expensive venture of acquiring all rights to the franchise. I'm certainly in agreement with you, Robert, in terms of what we should in the future for the franchise. I love the diversity of offering televised spin-offs on Apple TV of a series featuring the MI6 agents in action to be entitled The Double O's. That was an idea that I floated a couple weeks ago. A series starring Lashana Lynch, reprising her role of Nomi from No Time to Die, and a period series set in the 1960s, charting the rise of Spectre. How about a series based on the Moneypenny Diaries, written by Samantha Weinberg under the pseudonym Kate Westbrook? Could do that too. From Universal, I would love to see films set in the 1960s with James Bond, reimagining the old Bond films that are straight-up adaptations of the Fleming novels. I would be first in line to see them. How come Eon Productions haven't tapped you on the shoulder to work on a Bond film, Robert? Such a fantastic idea, would make loads of money for the franchise. I would be in line to see anything you would make within the Bond franchise. It would certainly be better than Die Another Day or Spectre. I would love to see films where Bond undertakes the missions we saw him complete in the opening pre-credit sequences for Goldfinger, Thunderball, and The Spy Who Loved Me. I know, right? They could continue the films through the Bond novels written by John Gardner, such as License Renewed for Special Services, which I really liked, Win, Lose, or Die, and Broken Claw. I didn't like Broken Claw very much. I would love to see Universal make a spin-off film franchise with Idris Elba as a CIA operative, or as CIA operative Felix Leiter. Speaking of James Bond, I wonder if you've seen an episode of the podcast show From Rewatch with Love by the YouTube channel Loading Ready Run. The show is hosted by Graham Stark and Matt Wiggins and is very informative and entertaining. Each episode consists of an in-depth conversation-style retrospective review of a film within the long-running Eon Productions franchise. So far, they've uploaded retrospectives from Dr. No to The Living Daylights. So I recommend yourself and those within the Post-Geek Singularity that love the Bond series to check out From Rewatch with Love. All the previous episodes are available to watch on their YouTube channel page. I have not watched them. That sounds great. As always, I love your engaging, entertaining, and astute observations on film and television on the one and only Robservations. Well, thank you very much. To yourself and to the wonderful members of the Post-Geek Singularity, I hope you all have enjoyed the weekend and have begun the week positively. Sincerely, Jason Webster. Well, thank you, Jason. All good ideas. You know, a lot of people say, why haven't people hired me to do this or do that? And I have to say that's very flattering. But, you know, the problem is just having good ideas isn't enough. You know, you have to have work with people. You have to have a lot of professional credibility to get into these places. And while I think I do know a lot about these franchises and I've spent an inordinate amount of time thinking about these franchises, there's already many studio executives and people that went to Ivy League schools that have jobs. I mean, I could have gone that route. I mean, I was working at Warner Brothers. That's how I began my career, working for Senior Vice President of Production Bill Young. But I didn't want to be the studio executive guy. I wanted to be a filmmaker. You know, I went into makeup effects for Tony Gardner when I worked on Army of Darkness and Sleepwalkers and the Swamp Thing TV show and what was it called? It was originally shot as Lovecraft Fred Ward, you know, the H.P. Lovecraft detective movie. Why am I drawing a blank on it? I worked on it, and I'm drawing a blank. I can't even remember. That's crazy. Perhaps the wine is affecting my... Cast a Deadly Spell. That's what it was called. But yeah, I think I could do a good job, but what can I say? It's hard to get those jobs. Here is a letter from Willow Yang. Let's see, this is interesting. Maybe I already read this. I don't remember reading this, but maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Willow Yang wrote this letter. I'm going to read it again, if I didn't already. Dear Rob, first and foremost, I was rushed in writing this letter, and I do apologize if there might be a lot of mistakes in it. Secondly, I'm a bit heated as I'm writing this letter. I do hope that you'll keep that in mind as you're reading it. And I hope that I don't come across as being too angry or harsh. Wait, you know what? Well, okay, I'll go on, because I love Willow, and I'm going to read this letter. Thirdly, as I've indicated in the checkboxes, I do not want this letter to be read on the air. Oh, I just want it to be a private conversation. That's right. I didn't read this. I can't read this. I meant to get this. I wish Willow would let me read this because it's good. It's good. Oh, here's another one. That's Pedro's letter that he's asking about. Wow, I got lots of not for air. All these letters from people that I can't read, which, you know what? I have to respect that. I have to expect. There's a lot of them. Here's a letter that comes from Cinema Gulp. Happy Halloween week, Rob, to you and the Post-Geek Singularity. I'm writing today because since the month of October started, as usual, my friends and I have been running the gauntlet when it comes to horror marathons. 2, sometimes 3 major movie marathons a week. One comes to realize that no matter how many horror films you watch, there will always be an overabundance of them waiting around a dark corner. When brainstorming our Hallows Eve marathon, we came across the mention of horror anthologies. Yes, the usual were mentioned: Dead of Night, Creepshow, the VHS movies, as well as Tales from the Dark Side. What? No Dr. Terror's House of Horrors? What about your Amicus movies? Tales from the Crypt? Come on, man. Anyway. However, there's one film that to me stands above all the rest. It's more than an anthology film. It is technically considered one based on its narrative structure, but not only is it the best of the genre, it transcends the genre. It's a film that should be celebrated. Wait a minute. I know what you want. You know what? You want to talk about this movie? I'm going to see. Let me see if he's talking about Trick or Treat. I'm, of course, referring to Michael Dougherty's 2007 classic, Trick or Treat. The mere mention of this film got my group of friends in a tizzy over the legitimacy of its place in the genre. I, for one, know what type of film it is, and I'm joyfully awaiting watching it this Friday with the very friends who aren't sure of what type of film this is. I can't wait to prove them wrong. You know what I'm going to do? Let's see. I'm going to make a phone call. And let's see, we'll see if he answers. He might not.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. At the tone, please record your message.
Mike, it's Rob Burnett calling. I'm live on my YouTube show, and I had a reader write in about Trick or Treat being one of the greatest horror anthologies ever made. And I was curious your take on horror anthologies. Are you an Amicus fan? Do you love Creepshow? If you get this message and you want to call me back, I'll be live for probably another hour. And you can call me at, well, the number you see here. Hang on one second. Hang on. Wait. Hold on. I got to turn my microphone off. And hope to hear from you. Bye. Well, there you go. Maybe Mike Dougherty can call back and weigh in. We'll see. I do see their point, however, though. It is a film that doesn't play out in the same way that a typical horror anthology does. For one thing, it all happens in one night, in the same small town with a lot of characters from different stories interacting with one from another. The stories are all so close you can practically hear the other stories happening while watching another. This keeps it from feeling completely like an anthology that would usually start with some underlining narrative. I've got my microphone on. Underlying narrative that after separate stories it may come back in the end to play out, but that's usually it. However, Trick or Treat takes its story in Tarantino's direction, where things that happen in one story moderately affect what happens in another. A lot of plant and payoff in this film, Rob. The 4 interwoven tales of Halloween, darkness and lore breathes wonderfully welcome smoke. Brings wonderfully welcome smoke back into the genre, which hasn't exactly lost its way, but needs to stay invigorated and crafty in order to keep its footing. I've always thought that Trick or Treat feels like the Pulp Fiction of horror films. It's ambiguous for its setup, but quickly morphs into a fast-paced ride that lends itself to many different horror genres. And it's a piece of horror cinema that should be celebrated, especially around holiday season. Halloween season. We have genres like creature features, slashers, ghost stories, and even haunted house cinema. It's all here, and it's all done masterfully by writer-director Mike Dougherty. The stories are told in a way that keeps you in suspense until each of the counterparts play out. There are some more intricate to the overall movie than others, but they all play out to complete the story. Aside from the tight script, the tone, the look and feel of the film are such an homage to the spirit of Halloween. Though not super scary, it acts as more of a treat, no pun intended, for people who love the season of Halloween and how it makes us feel. For me, Halloween has always brought out my imagination more. Needless to say, I always have a permanent smile on my face the whole time when watching this film. It's just pure fun. Tony Wolgemuth's art direction and Tony Freeborn's production design are so mystical and detailed that the screen literally perspires pumpkins. There are so many interesting and colorful pumpkins in the film, it's ridiculous. One could argue an excessive use of fog machines, but I didn't mind, since it's all there purposefully. I know what they were going for, and the over-the-top moments are golden. There's also some nice editing tricks that keep the stories all well-paced and making sense in the order they're given. It's always easy to tell where the story is moved to and from one sequence to the next. The best element of the film for me is Glenn McPherson's cinematography. He did great work considering he hadn't really done many great films leading up to this, and his filmography wouldn't suggest he went on too many good projects after this. However, he knocked this one out of the park. I think it was a collaborative effort that made all these guys hit their marks so well. A perfect Halloween film with terrifically hammy performances from Anna Paquin, Brian Cox, Leslie Bibb, and the best of all, Dylan Baker. Trick or Treat is a marvel of the very holiday it takes place on. Not since films like the original Halloween or perhaps Silver Bullet has a film captured the spirit of the holiday we all love. Oh yeah, and this film is not afraid to kill children in pretty crazy ways. Take that for whatever you want. Dougherty is a fantastic filmmaker that, quite frankly, doesn't do as much as I wish. But when he does, it's always one of my favorites of the year. His 2015 Gremlins-ish take on Christmas Krampus was a blast with its use of practical effects, miniatures, and puppetry. I've always been baffled that we've never gotten a sequel to Trick or Treat. Dougherty has been talking about one for more than a decade, but nothing has ever materialized. And by the looks of things and where his career has gone moving more into big-budget films, we probably never will. That's okay, though, Rob. Trick or Treat is just perfect on its own. That's one of the things that makes it so special. The interweaving story threads have you focused more on one story than the others each time you watch it. So in a way, it's like watching a different film every time. I love this movie so much, and I want to continue to spread the word on it. Post-Geek Singularity, go out and watch Trick or Treat this week if you haven't. You'll be a better person for it. Thanks as always, Rob. Elizaviews has been a blast this month. Keep them coming, sir. Until next time, happy Halloween, and to all the imagination connoisseurs, live long and prosper. Cinema Gulp. Well, tonight at 7:30, ladies and gentlemen, we will be doing The Exorcist on Whining About Movies. The movie I consider to be the GOAT, my favorite horror film of all time, and watching it again with Elizabeth, that opinion has not changed. The film is not just a great horror film, it's just a great film. And the questions it asks are, I think, profound. And that's one of the reasons it's lost none of its power in almost 50 years. So good. Such a good film. I love it so. Omar94 writes in here, and I love this. Omar94 wrote a great letter about Tequila Sunrise, a movie I absolutely adore. And he writes in again. Hi, Rob. I have another movie review letter, similar to the ones I wrote about Rebecca and Tequila Sunrise, so here goes. I've said to myself for quite some time now, I would get around to seeing this movie, and I finally did. That movie is Ridley Scott's Black Rain, which I believe is 31 years old this year, starring Michael Douglas, Andy Garcia, and Kate Capshaw. Overall, I thought it was not bad. One thing I would agree with when I was looking up the movie was how several reviewers felt it was more suited for Tony Scott than Ridley Scott. That's okay, though. Ridley Scott does make a very visually stylish movie like Legend and Blade Runner, but Black Rain definitely looked and felt more like a Tony Scott film, especially if you've seen his movies like Beverly Hills Cop 2, The Last Boy Scout, and True Romance. For the positives, I really like the visual look of the movie overall, thanks to Jan de Bont's cinematography. The action scenes were good. The second last action set piece, which reminded me of the final battle in Terminator 2 at the factory, and the last action set piece reminded me a bit of the final battle in Beverly Hills Cop 2. Andy Garcia's performance was really good, but the best performance and best character in the movie was Ken Takakura as Masahiro Matsumoto. Mas. For the negatives, Kate Capshaw didn't really do it other than explain a few plot points, and there was a shoehorned-in romance between her and Michael Douglas. Speaking of Douglas, he's a very good actor, but his character was really unlikable during the first half of the film, but he got better in the second half. Finally, it could have been a little shorter. Anyway, that's my review of Black Rain. Thanks, and live long and prosper. I actually have, believe it or not, a Black Rain action figure, and not even of Michael Douglas. It's of the villain, and I need to get that out. I need to absolutely get that out. Keith O'Neill writes in, "Hey, Rob, I saw the episode you posted Thursday night when you were telling your story about the Axanar project and how someone accused you of stealing digital assets. Even though you archived it for yourself, it sounded like you were fighting for creator rights. Your story reminded me of comic book artist Neil Adams and how he fought hard for comic book creator rights as he came up in the industry. You obviously know who Neil Adams is. I do indeed. But for those listening at home who aren't familiar with him, Adams is a prominent comic book artist who helped redefine Batman along with the legendary writer Denny O'Neil, no relation, and made him go from being the overly kid-friendly comic book hero to the Dark Knight we all know and love today. Fun fact, he also designed the Robin outfit for Tim Drake when he was introduced in the comics. But most importantly, he was the leading figure in the comic book creator rights struggle. Before Adams fought for them, comic book creators were completely owned by the publications who printed the comics. Writers and artists who created characters were essentially just employees to those companies. One glaring example of how the companies viewed artists and their work was when Adams went to the DC Comics' offices one day and someone was throwing away the original panels used to print the comics instead of saving them. I know, horrific. Neil talks about it on a few episodes of Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman, if you can find them. Well, thanks for writing that, Keith O'Neill. Well, you know, with the Axanar project, it was a little different in the sense that everything that was ever made from Axanar up until the recent, whatever they released the other day, I was responsible for. Prelude to Axanar was given to me to edit. I had carte blanche. I edited the film, post-supervised it, and literally was working on it mere hours before I left to the San Diego Comic-Con for its world premiere. So all of the Axanar assets were something that I looked over. And according to Alec Peters, he never paid me. He just loaned me money. I also never had a work-for-hire agreement. So it was pretty much, it fell to me. I mean, you'd think a producer would spend more time looking out for his assets. And like I said on the show, let me be clear on this. I did copy all of the Axanar assets and gave them to Alec Peters, and he was in possession of them for almost the better part of a year until we moved out of the studio. I think I copied them all for him. My responsibility is finished. A producer is only as good as his assets, and the idea that he somehow didn't protect them and then comes back and tries to sue me for assets that I gave to him is ridiculous. A movie producer who loses his own assets, well, that's about as effective as Alec Peters is, and he hasn't been able to make 2 15-minute movies in the 4 years since the CBS settlement. So, but yeah, no, I keep everything I work on. It's all archived. I have it all. And I'm certainly happy if somebody wants me to copy assets that I've created. Certainly didn't have a work for hire, which means everything I worked on is technically, well, it's mine, because no one hired me to do it officially, apparently. There's no work for hire. There's no scope of work. Everything I was doing on my own here. And Alec has made fine use of it. If you watch the trailer he dropped yesterday, the really amateurishly put together trailer that's 8 minutes long, the way he continues to bastardize the effects I worked on back in 2015 and keeps passing them off as something new and putting them all out of context. I don't know. He's diluting his brand. That's okay. What can I say? I mean, you know, it's not too hard to make 2 15-minute short films. I could have done that in a weekend, but there you go. But yeah, so it's not really so much for creator rights as it is. They're just mine. It's my work that I was apparently never paid for, and I certainly didn't have a work for hire. I was never hired to make that work. Was I? Please produce my work for hire agreement. Otherwise, you know, when I shoot something on video and if I'm not hired to do it and I don't have a work for hire agreement, everything that I make is mine. That's how it works. So, yes. This one comes from Omar94 again. Hi, Rob. For the month of Halloween, I finally saw some movies I said I would for years, but never got around to until earlier this month. Here are the reviews I have. The first film is the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Philip Kaufman and starring Donald Sutherland and Jeff Goldblum. I enjoyed this remake, and I enjoyed the original 1956 version, but I think the remake I like more. All of the performances and the makeup were great, and I love the final scene. I loved, the second film is the 1986 remake of The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg and starring Jeff Goldblum and Geena Davis. I'd never seen the original 1958 version, but I did quite enjoy this remake. Goldblum's performance was really good, and all the makeup was incredible and definitely deserved the Oscar. The third film is Francis Coppola's 1992 Dracula, starring Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, and Anthony Hopkins. I know this film has a lot of fans, but it was not for me, unfortunately. It wasn't for me either. And I love Coppola. I thought it started really well, but when Gary Oldman came to England, it's when I started losing interest. The cinematography, art direction, costume score, makeup, and the performance of Oldman and Hopkins were all really good. Winona Ryder's a good actress, but I didn't like her British accent. The same goes for Keanu Reeves, who felt miscast, but I found out Coppola wanted Johnny Depp, but Columbia wanted a more well-known actor. Coppola regretted casting Reeves, and Reeves even hated his part in the movie. Reeves' British accent was not great, and he sounded like he was playing Ted from Bill and Ted, putting on a British accent. The fourth and final film, the original 1956 Creature from the Black Lagoon, I found enjoyable and plain and simply fun. The actors are not that well known, but I thought they were pretty good. The score was also pretty good, especially when the creature shows up and or attacks people. Those are my reviews for some movies I finally got around to seeing after telling myself for years I would for the month of Halloween. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Well, thank you for that. Justin Toner. It's Toner, isn't it? Justin Toner says, Hi, Rob. Last night I saw Dario Argento's Suspiria for the first time. Wow, I was blown away how great it was. What Argento should I watch next? My friends and I also watched Shock Treatment and The House That Dripped Blood from Amicus. Fun stuff like Shock Treatment, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Shock Treatment, that's the only movie I ever walked out of. But I'm glad you liked it. Happy Halloween. Look, some of my favorite Argentos. I love Tenebrae. Different. I mean, Suspiria is different. I love Tenebrae. I loved Opera. And I loved the Four Flies on Grey Velvet, the Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And why am I drawing a blank on the third one? The I don't know why. But, Cat o' Nine Tails. The Animal Trilogy. You should watch those. They're great Giallo movies. And, of course, you've got to watch Deep Red, Profondo Rosso. You have to watch that, which is great. Those are some of my favorite Argentos. And, yeah, I like Phenomenon, but get the extended version. I mean, it's Jennifer Connelly. What's not to love? Felix Leiter's here. Hey, Rob, upon getting home from a long day of doing nothing, I opened my YouTube app and checked out my subscriptions page. I see you have a stream scheduled for 6:05 p.m. local time here in Langley, paying tribute to one Sean Connery. Well, Felix, I do, and I hope you enjoy, when you watch it, I hope you enjoy the stream about Sean Connery, one of my favorite actors, and once again, let's drink to Sean. Anthony Gonzalez, our man Anthony Gonzalez is here and says, Happy Halloween, Robert. No trick or treat tonight, but Gilbert always deserves a treat. And he gets them. He got them right before I went on the show, by the way. Robert, do you recommend the Exorcist TV series that went 2 seasons? Thinking of getting Hulu just to see it. I've heard some good things. I loved, believe it or not, I loved the Exorcist TV series. I really did. I was surprised by it. Yeah, it gets a little over the top, but it's pretty darn good. But it's too bad, after 2 seasons it's done, but you should check it out. It's worth getting. Felix Leiter goes on to say, I'm not sure who this Sean guy is, but he looks rather familiar. I decided to check out his Wikipedia, and it seems he did more in one life than most people could hope to do in 2. One could even say he did, in fact, live twice. Or so it seems. Well, Felix, I see what you did there. My question to you, sir, is, are you black? Are you white? What kind of a Felix Leiter are you? I'm curious because Felix Leiter's been played by Bernie Casey and, of course, Jeffrey Wright, 2 fine black men, Nubian princes both. Also, David Hedison. I mean, come on. And others played Felix Leiter. Many people played Felix Leiter. I'm curious, which kind are you? I really liked Bernie Casey as Felix Leiter in Never Say Never Again. I thought he was pretty rad. Hitchcock is the GOAT. Sends in a tip and says, just bought Never Say Never Again on Vudu. Fatima Blush. I made you all wet. Sean Connery, yes, but my martini's still dry. I'm James. Sir Connery, you will be missed. Daniel Craig is awesome, but still number 2. You are correct. Hitchcock is the GOAT. He is number 2. Ross Gecko says that not a single obituary mentions Robin and Marion or First Night. I know, right? I mean, come on. What are you going to do? Maid Marian, Robin Hood. It's a bummer. Swack Props is here. Oh, everyone's killing me. You're killing me. Swack Props says, it's sad that we lost both Teresa De Vincenzo and James Bond just months apart from each other. One of the highlights of my life was seeing Sean Connery in person, albeit about 100 meters away, when he came to Malaysia to film Entrapment in the late 90s. Wow. Yes, but Sean Connery was never with Miss Vincenzo because, of course, that was on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I love Diana Rigg in that movie. So good. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Let's see. Let's see what else. I got letters and letters and letters and letters. Well, this says private message. I'm going to read it anyway. Gary, just comes from Gary. Hey, Rob, I wanted to drop this message to you and thank you for all your content on YouTube and your opinions on Star Trek over the many years. We both seem to love the show and have very similar outlooks on its past and future, which brings me to the reason I wanted to contact you. I watched this video on YouTube. I watched it as well. Rowan Coleman did this. This was a video he dropped yesterday on the Axanar situation. And it's a pretty good video, but it leaves out a lot, which is all about Axanar and the real reasons why it got hit by the lawsuit. You were mentioned by name, although fleetingly, and I felt you should have been contacted for your input into this, but obviously the creator of this channel has such a love for all things new in Trek, he decided to simply ignore you and press on with his own opinion. That's fine, which is fine. We are all allowed an opinion, even if it's wrong, laugh out loud. Anyway, hope you're well, and just wanted to bring this to your attention, as I feel you, of all people, know the truth on Axanar. Oh, I do. And, you know, we're dealing with that in a documentary called Lords of Their Realm, and I'll be working on a documentary about toxic fandom and how is toxic fandom really toxic? But I want to talk to a bunch of people from all across the spectrum, everybody. And I know some of them, and I'm going to be doing interviews with them, but we're going to examine the entire Axanar phenomenon, and it's interesting. I mean, gosh, if they just made the films, how hard can that be? I don't know. But yeah. Oh, 200 Watt Studios sent in a super chat saying, how could you leave out Jack Lord as the first Felix? Well, I could have run it. You're right. Jack Lord, Hawaii Five-0, Jack Lord was actually the first Felix Leiter. And, yeah, I mean, David Hedison was Felix Leiter in Live and Let Die and in License to Kill. Yes, there were many Felix Leiters. But I should have said Jack Lord. You are correct. Darren Seeley writes in and says, Rob, you were right about Discovery's third episode, People of Earth. But I thought for a brief moment that there was a glimmer of hope when the crew of the Discovery brokered a peace treaty between two parties, but that was all but a moment. With the rest of the episode, I found a bit of a theme going on, and it annoyed me. It annoyed me that all that needs to be done in this future time is to stop deceiving one another. The show took out enough with a very noticeable gaffe. The oddity of the distance between Saturn and Earth has now somehow shrunk. They don't know. The people that are making Star Trek Discovery have zero understanding of the cosmos at all. Like last season when they had 5 different beacons of light show up all at the same time. Without understanding, I mean, yeah, it's one thing to look on a map of the galaxy and look at, hey, all of these lights, they all popped up at the same time. But my question was, listen, idiots, light doesn't all get here at the same time. Those lights aren't all equidistant. And by the way, where you have them out there, it would have taken sometimes years for the light to get anywhere where it could have been measured. But whatever. With the rest of the episode, I found a bit of a theme going on, and it annoyed me. It annoyed me that all that needs to be done in this future time is to stop deceiving one another. The oddity of the distance between Saturn and Earth has now somehow shrunk, but with that final twist, if you can call it that, and now it seems to be the departure of one character we just got to know in favor of another new character whose introduction is forced and really, really bad. I don't blame you for tapping out. I tapped out early last season, but came back because I thought Discovery was going to do something bold and new. They aren't, but at least this episode had a theme, I'll give it that. The Discovery attempts to deceive the Earth Defense Force. Creeping up on Earth, they go to great lengths to come up with a cover story. Once quickly boarded, they keep up the facade. The Earth Defense Force is skeptical as they are paranoid. Michael gets booked to dress up like a Starfleet officer. More deception. Interesting how Book has no interaction with any of the Earth Defense Force investigators, and while it's nobody else's business, Michael and Book fib to others about their relationship and then to each other for some reason. I suppose getting back on the Discovery changes things. It was a great year away, Book, helping her find Discovery, the two growing closer. We found the ship. Bye-bye. Okay, most likely Book will show up later in the season, but I might not care by that point. But I care now. There's a difference, as you pointed out. Michael also deceives Captain Saru and the rest of the Discovery crew to carry out a plan. Jordao seems to know, but speaks cryptically instead of giving an actual answer or theory, so yeah, she's deceptive too. And then there's the EDF itself, paranoid and, yes, deceptive. They inform Discovery Starfleet is no more, yet lo and behold, Starfleet Academy? And everyone's favorite tree? You've got 5 minutes to enjoy it after beaming down. Okay, maybe it's now called the Earth Defense Force Academy, but it doesn't quite have the same ring. Besides, is there a reason why the EDF can't rebuild Starfleet on their own? The first twist, one that isn't surprising, is the Raider and their deception. It's a little telegraphed, although it would be more interesting if it wasn't a twist, and the Raiders were a race of aliens. They're really humans from Earth who were Titan miners after the burn, and they turned to Earth for help, and the emissary ship was destroyed when it caused them to dress up in alien masks and engage in a conflict with the Earth Defense Force. What does it take to call a truce? By the way, did anyone notice that what The Expanse has done so well over multiple seasons, Star Trek Discovery did in such a ham-fisted manner in 30 minutes? So bad. It also doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're 900 and something years into the future, and it seems like the entire galaxy has regressed to the 21st or 22nd century. There's such a failure of imagination on Star Trek Discovery this season that I'm astonished at just how bad it really is. But anyway, there really are humans from Earth who were Titan miners after the burn, and they turned to Earth for help, and the emissary ship was destroyed, when then caused them to dress up in alien masks and engage in a conflict with the Earth Defense Force. What does it take to call a truce? By the way, we have scanners. You know, the technology hasn't gone away just because dilithium blew up. There's no future technology other than, personal transporters or whatever. I mean, that's not a big leap. But 800 years difference since the burn and when the Discovery left. 800 years. Think about how far our technology has come 800 years. Now go exponentially what it would be like in the Star Trek future. It's so weird. Which brings us to this new and annoying character. Annoying how? The character is literally introduced as being deceptive. Why not? Everyone else is, might as well. Not only does this character sabotage Discovery to have more time to explore, the sabotage literally puts everyone in danger. An enemy force is approaching. Adira's people do not trust the Discovery crew. Adira's actions become a threat to the ship she wants to explore. Sorry, they. And no reprimand is given. Well, they joined Discovery after sabotaging it. Okay, I guess you can trust this person. Oh, wait, one more mic drop, one more deception, and this is bad. Adira turns out to be a human host for a Trill who was previously Admiral Tall. Apparently, nobody in the Earth Defense Force knew this. Adira kept it a secret from those who employed her. Why? My memory's cloudy, but Adira knows a lot of tech due to past hosts. Knows whose past host was, and hold on, Adira's human? Admiral Till's been presumed dead for how long? Please see the Next Generation episode, The Host. Okay, if technology, especially Trill technology, or perhaps even microevolution advanced in time, which would lessen the risk of humans hosting a Trill for more than a day without dying, the question still stands. Why the deception? What would be the harm in letting people know what happened to Admiral Till? The Trill, oh god, I can't believe I went there. Sure. Adira may have a rather convenient memory freeze on that, but she knows she's carrying the Trill symbiote. I know much is made of the character being the first non-binary character on Star Trek, which makes no sense. Blue Del Barrio, who plays Adira, identifies as non-binary. That was equally hyped, and most fans knew the character would be a Trill-like character, but really now, aren't Trills inherently non-binary, depending on what their hosts are like? So I think it's weird. Are we going to see our first non-binary character on Star Trek 900 and something years in the future? I would think that anyone who's non-binary or who's trans or whoever they want to be would be old hat in the late 21st century, because who would care? That's the whole point. But 900 years in the future, how does a non-binary character deal with a Trill who probably, for the most part, isn't non-binary? But a Trill is like, are you a human host? I mean, a male or a female? I mean, I would assume that Trills are used to that. So it's interesting that a non-binary character is hosting a Trill who's probably been both males and females, or is hosting a symbiote who's been both male and female. So I would think that being a non-binary character hosting a Trill, interesting. I don't know if that's exactly what they wanted to achieve on Star Trek, but okay. Everyone appears to be engaged in deception, and if we stop with the defense barriers and deception, wouldn't it make things easier? Wouldn't more barriers be taken down? Can we communicate again? I'm trying to get something out of substance out of this. I'll keep watching the season. Well, maybe I'll give it one or two more. Signs of life, Rob. It's there. I would like to hope so. Take care, Darren J. Seeley. Yeah, look. The writing to me in Star Trek Discovery is, and I'm honest when I say this, it is the worst written science fiction show I've ever seen on television. None of it makes sense. None of it follows any kind of regular plotting. The Far Out Space Nuts and The Lost Saucer on Saturday morning television, or Land of the Lost, had more cogent writing and better science fiction writing than Star Trek Discovery does. And I don't understand it. I watch the show and I'm like, what is this? What am I watching? More along the lines, or what should I be watching? Why am I watching? I don't know. Let's see. Hitchcock is the GOAT says Goldfinger often gets the top nod, and that's fine. But I believe if Sean Connery did honor Majesty's Secret Service, the character development and the overall story, and especially the scene at the end, would be considered the best Bond ever. I agree with that too. I mean, look, I know that Honor Majesty's Secret Service has some goofy stuff. Blofeld's plan isn't exactly a modicum of a strategy. I love the movie anyway, but I think Connery would have been great in that role. I would have loved to have seen that. It's a bummer. Grand Wazoo 42 sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Rob. I stumbled across you when you first joined Collider Heroes in the old days. The old days, 5.5 years ago. Just wanted to say that John would be proud of you." Oh, that's so nice of you to say. "And your channel, and that I believe he is with us this Sam Hain. Rest in peace, John Schnepp. Rest in peace, Sean Connery." Well, Grand Wazoo, I think John Schnepp does descend back to Earth and haunt us all on Sam Hain on every Halloween. I'd like to believe that's true. It'd be amazing. Felix Leiter says he doesn't see color. Well, that's good. So it doesn't matter whether you're Jack Lord or David Hedison or Bernie Casey or Jeffrey Wright. I think that's good. That's fantastic. 200 Watt Studios sent in a super chat and says, also, Adira was a character in Babylon 5 as well. It's true. So we got Book from Firefly. We got Adira from Babylon 5. I mean, who else are they going to... Who else are they going to rip off? I have no idea. Swack Props sends in a tip and says, my God, half that third Star Trek Discovery episode was so sappy and emo it annoyed me. How much do you want to bet that the burn was somehow caused by Michael the Burn Burnham as she traveled forward in time with her Iron Man suit? After all, she is the center of the universe. Man, I got to tell you, I know. It's unbelievably annoying, that show. What are you going to do? Julian M. says, toxic fandom does exist. It exists anytime a fan asserts their opinion as superior to others by resorting to ad hominem attacks and threats of violence. The pity of it is that in this particular time, any opinion that isn't PC is now branded toxic. Well, two good points there. I mean, one, fandom has always argued amongst itself, but nowadays, yes, I think that the idea that people resort to ad hominem attacks, they certainly do to me. You know, I like to have a good fan debate, but I get a lot of ad hominem attacks thrown my way. But you're right. It's bizarre. Fandom, the fact that fandom is so, like everything, PC, the left, all of this, I don't get it. I mean, science fiction can be very conservative, but it can also be very heady. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on in science fiction literature and movies, and it's worth discussing. And I feel that there's a lot of people that can't, which is a bummer. We should always be able to discuss anything, always. Every time I take a sip of this Snoop Dogg 19 Crimes, is it 19 Crimes wine? I think about Sean Connery. I do. This letter, again, another letter from Omar94, writes, hi, Rob. I was reading something on Steven Spielberg which brought up something interesting, saying his movies like E.T. and the first three Indiana Jones films and Jurassic Park became archetypes of modern Hollywood escapist filmmaking. While I think those movies pioneered blockbusters and are escapist filmmaking, I don't really agree with modern blockbusters being escapist filmmaking. What I mean is, even though blockbusters are larger than life, I don't find myself immersed in the modern ones the way I do with older ones. For example, even though I ended up enjoying The Force Awakens, I don't find it to be escapist filmmaking and see myself immersed in it the way I do when I watch A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Jurassic World was like that too, as I'm completely immersed in the original Jurassic Park and see that as escapist filmmaking, but I don't feel that with Jurassic World. I guess I feel that way because modern blockbusters, or really movies in general now, are corporate made as opposed to creator made, like in the era when Spielberg was at his peak, along with other filmmakers like George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, James Cameron, John McTiernan, etc. Anyways, I don't know if that makes sense to you or if the viewers can follow through on that, but that's just how I see modern blockbusters. And now I know because I've read it. Let me go find your other letter, which is here. Just to add to my letter on escapist filmmaking, and since I forgot to write all this down after sending it, here goes. I don't feel the sense of escapist entertainment with the MCU movies. I've liked most of the MCU movies, not all, since some are either okay or not that good, but I don't really hold them in high regard, even when I like them, since I think they're not very immersive. I know people are crazy about the MCU movies like Avengers 1, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Infinity War, and Endgame as examples, but I don't just see them as escapist entertainment since I find them a little bland and too generic. Well, that's fair. Look, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, we live in a world now where all of these films are controlled by big corporations, which means, and the amount of money they cost is I mean, Terminator 2, I remember when it was the first $100 million movie, and part of that was because it was rushed into production. So they had to throw a lot of money at it to get it done. But nowadays, films are such an expensive proposition, they can't let auteurs go out there. Even the filmmakers they put on these movies are corporately, they have to be vetted corporately. So you're absolutely right. We're not, the movies that we're seeing, one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight on Whining About Movies is The Exorcist. Is the reason it has, I think, peak verisimilitude is because Friedkin was allowed to go off and make the movie he wanted to make. Nowadays, I mean, you can see it. It feels real. The Exorcist feels real, which makes it so immersive. Everything else that you see, they concentrate on all the shock value. There is no verisimilitude other than in Exorcist 3, which I think is another wonderful film. But even that has a little bit of crazy stuff in it that's hard to swallow. But I think that has a lot to do with whether movies are good or bad or immersive. You have to believe. When you say immersive, they have to take you in, and you stop realizing you're watching a movie. And I can understand, like when you're watching the MCU films, if you don't allow yourself, or it's not your thing. Superhero movies are not your thing, so you can never immerse yourself deep into them. I totally get that. I mean, I feel the same way. That's why I'm such a fan of movies from the 70s. I watch films from the 70s. It doesn't matter what it is. They feel real, so I believe them. And I'm not really acutely aware I'm watching a film anymore. It feels more like I'm reading a book or something because they're that immersive. That's one of the things that I love about The Exorcist. It's got all this crazy effects technology being employed to create this possessed girl, but everything else around it is so serious and dramatic, and it feels like you're in the real world, which is really hard to do, especially for a horror film, and that's why I love it so much. So yeah. Regis K says, what I don't like about Disney's Star Wars, a most powerful Sith Lord came back to the light, which in itself is groundbreaking, and nobody seems to care. Yeah, I agree with you. Nothing about the Disney sequel trilogy makes any sense to me. Other than maybe Luke's journey. I just didn't think it was well done. And in terms of going from Force Awakens to Last Jedi, I mean, if Last Jedi was the only movie that we had from this sequel trilogy, and that's all they made, I think that would be really interesting. Like, you don't even know who Rey is. She's just a potential apprentice. She shows up on Achto with a lightsaber, and that's how you go from there. I would have thought that was a much better movie. Because what an ill-conceived trilogy that goes nowhere, does nothing, and I mean, one of the most profound disappointments in cinema history is the collective Disney sequel trilogy, because there was no plan. It was not good. Swack Prop says, by the way, what did you think of the first episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian? I loved it. You know what? All that fan service, what I loved about it was it dare I say, humanized the Sand People. I had so much fun with that episode. I thought it was great for what it was. I mean, as far as a Star Wars side story goes, I thought it was just everything about it was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it. It was everything I liked about The Mandalorian. And I love the fact that at the end of the day, it seemed more like a Star Trek story than a Star Wars story, and that The Mandalorian kind of brought peace between the Tusken Raiders and the people of that village, or that Moss, what it was, I forget what it was called, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I really did. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to bring this episode of Robservations to a close. This is episode number 547. Episode 547. We are coming back tonight in 3 hours for our final Halloween show. I know we had to skip 2. We skipped The Witch, and also we are going to do The Hills Run Red, which we can get to at some future date. But we're going to do The Exorcist tonight to round out Halloween at 7:30. So join us. It should be a hoot. We've been having a lot of fun these last couple of shows. And I'm sure Elizabeth will have a lot to say. The Exorcist is my favorite horror film of all time. And we watched, by the way, the director's cut, which I perhaps didn't watch all the way through. I thought I had, but there's a couple of scenes that I can't believe William Friedkin put back in the film, which I think will be eliminated, and I'll talk about that tonight. I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank Mike Bodden. I want to thank Greg Smith. I want to thank the Richard. Hope the Richard is on the mend. You can always find the Richard on the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page. Go find him. He does Zoom parties, watch parties, and he's the man with a plan. Many plans, actually. I want to thank Joshua Levesque and MC Blackcap, who is here. Let's see who else is here. Let's see. I'm still looking. I don't know if Purple Valkyrie is here. She's joined the team too. She might have been. I don't know. But I want to thank everybody who was here. And so, yeah, rest in peace, Sean Connery. And today is Halloween. Strange that we're at this place in time. What an odd Halloween to be at. But I want to thank everybody for the continued support. Thanks for becoming members. And by the way, there's a lot of films dropping soon. There's going to be a week of movies. It's going to be great. We're going to see a lot more stuff, and I know people are. I saw somebody's a day away from wrapping their film. Can't wait to see all these movies. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have a month to get your movie in, and I can't wait to see it. So the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival is ongoing, and the deadline for getting your short story in for our potential and your potential inclusion in an anthology called The Imagination Connoisseurs is due on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So you still have time. And then we open up the contest for the book cover on December 2nd. So that's exciting. So if you've ever wanted to write a short story, well, now's your chance, between 5,000 and 10,000 words. And look out for BL Alley's workshop, Zoom workshop about writing, which will be kind of fun. So that'll be good. Everybody have a happy Halloween. Remember, if you get an apple from somebody, make sure you check it for razor blades. And with that, I'm going to end Robservations episode 547 and say, as always, remember, everybody you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say, hang on, somebody, Joe Dick sends in a super chat and says, is there a statute of limitations for movie spoilers? Well, if it just opened this week, don't be a dick. But statute of limitations, I don't think so. Is there something you want to talk about, Joe Dick, before I sign off? I love that. That cracks me up. If you want to talk about what Rosebud is in Citizen Kane, I don't think anybody would object. Some people might, but come on, man. You should have been there already. There's always new film fans, but you never know. But thanks for the super chat. And let's see, what else was I going to say? Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I want to remind everybody, we, Elizabeth and I, are going to show up in less than 3 hours to talk about my favorite horror film of all time, The Exorcist, which is pretty exciting. So hopefully you can all join us. Join us, like the Evil Dead say. And with that, I say, well, I can only say one thing today, and that is, Happy Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. It's time for the big giveaway. And with that, he's gone.